Hello and welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on March 25th, 25, 25th, 2021. Yeah, someone let me know. It's supposed to be March 25th or March 25. I always get that kind of confused. You would think that me being in Canada for the past 20 odd years, I would know how this is supposed to go. But anyway, who cares? At this point, we're here to talk about toys and action figures and collectibles, not grammar. A little bit of background. Now, I did not learn how to grapple properly until much later in my martial art career. Probably the first time I invested in learning how to grapple seriously was around 2011 when I got into doing some mixed martial art, and then because of I always felt I was at a disadvantage, not knowing all the proper techniques on the ground. I felt I needed to learn some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, some of you are thinking, what's that have to do with Toy Thursday? Why are we talking about your martial art background? Well, because prior to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I really knew very little about Brazil and Brazilians. I mean, I still know very little about them, um, and it's one of those things that I want to uh, hopefully in my lifetime have a chance to know more about. I would love to visit Brazil. I would love to be able to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Capoeira in Brazil. Uh, I have spoken to a lot of friends that have been to Brazil, and they come back and they tell me it's like a paradise where everyone is so friendly and there's a lot of dancing, a lot of music, and everyone's so cheerful, so outgoing, and so joyful all the time. Now, of course, I take those stories with a grain of salt because I believe that every country has its uh, good side, bad side. The places you go that are people just more friendly and stuff like that. So I don't know if these stories my friends are bringing back from Brazil. It's just a result of them just staying on the resort where everyone, of course, is trying to show put their best foot forward for the sake of the rich tourist? Or is it like that all throughout Brazil? Maybe some of you who've been there can let me know in the comment section. Uh, I definitely know that if you come to Canada and then the only place you stay at is downtown Vancouver, British Columbia, then you are going to go home and tell everybody, "Wow, Canada is just like New York, and there's so much to do, and everything is there's so much nighttime activity, and there's a lot of nightclubs, and everyone's so fashionable, and everyone is so trendy." But that's not the case for a lot of parts of Canada. I mean, if your first stop in Canada is Calgary, Alberta, you are going to go home with an entire different story. So I'm just saying that, while I do really want to visit Brazil sometime, uh, I do know that the story from my friends might not be the whole entirety of what's going on there. What else do I know about Brazil? Well, the background music you're hearing, if you are an old time, old school gamer like myself, you would have noticed by now we got the background music of Blanca going on. Blanca, the character from Street Fighter, and this is the soundtrack from Street Fighter Turbo from Sega Genesis, and it has been remixed. Now, what's interesting about Blanca? Now, the first time I was exposed to the character Blanca was on Street Fighter 2, playing it in the arcade when I was 11 years old. Yeah, I was 11 years old, and it was 1990 or 1991. I can't remember. I think it was 1990. And for those of you who don't know or don't remember, Street Fighter was one of the very early, very typical fighting games where every character have to represent a different country, and it's extremely stereotypical and really weird. Like the guy from India is walking around fighting using some weird fire breathing yoga technique that is not real yoga at all. And then the guy from Russian is like this hulking giant wrestler who can wrestle bears. And then the guy who's from the United States has this weird ass haircut that just like totally flat on the top, like the runway on the airport. And he has U.S. flags tattooed on his arm, and he wears dog tags and camo outfit. Like it's just like really silly like that. Like every character represents a country, and they look like the most stereotypical or the most crazy you can imagine about that country. So like you look at them, even without looking at the file, you would know, oh, that guy must be from the USA. Oh, that guy must be from India. Oh yeah, that guy must be from Thailand, and so on and so on. With the one exception of Blanca. Blanca, this green bodied, hairy, not even human. It's like a mutant, like a monster with big claws and fangs, and he can send out electric shocks. He represented Brazil. Now, at that age, I had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't even know where Brazil was. I didn't even know like what Brazil was about. I didn't know anything about Brazil until I played that game. So I had a couple of years. I'm ashamed to say I had a couple of years that I thought Brazilian people are supposed to look like that. It was just so stupid and so bad that, of course, I quickly learned that no, they didn't look like that, and it was just goofy that they chose to have Blanca represent Brazil. But that was fighting games in the early 90s and late 80s, and gradually, more and more Brazilian representation became popular in the gaming world, and the first real good representation came out later in the Tekken series of video game. But we are not going to go there yet. By now, you know that we are going to be talking about some Brazilians, some hot Brazilians. And right there in front of the camera, you see this uh, female that this hot little gem. I acquired her back in around Thanksgiving to 2020. I would be very surprised if those of you who are not big comic book geeks will recognize who this is. Her name is Beatrice da Costa. Her code name, her superhero name, is Fire. She was made in the DC signature uh, line from DC Comics, and she was made by the company Mattel. Now, a little bit of her background. Who is Fire? Who is Fire? Who is this uh, beauty? Fire, or Beatrice, started her life as a beach model in Brazil. She was born in Brazil. She was a supermodel in Brazil. And then she got drafted by her government to work as an undercover agent. During one of her missions, she was caught in a pyroplasmic, whatever pyroplasmic is. All I can say is something related to a very bad chemical fire explosion. So she got caught in an explosion, and then rather than killing her, it gave her the ability to turn her body into living flame. So for those of you who know your Fantastic Four, Just think of her as the DC Comics version of the Human Torch, except it's a female in this case. So she's basically DC's version of the Human Torch. She has all the Human Torch power. She can fly. She can convert her body to fire. She can uh, use that fire to blast through her enemies, and uh, she can, when she's in her fire state, when she's in her fiery state, uh, it's hard to harm her because she is a little bit intangible when she's in that state. She was the longest standing member of Justice League International. After her partner, uh, Ice, yeah, of course, you have fire, you have to have ice. After her partner Ice got killed, she decided to quit her superhero career and instead decided to become an internet glamour girl. I don't know what internet glamour girl is. Uh, Maybe someone can explain that to me. Is that like someone who operated the webcam and doing strip shows on the internet? Or how does that work? I don't know. But anyway, um, and then after a while, she got pulled back into the superhero business and formed a new partnership with Mary Marvel. For those of you who don't know, that's a sister of Captain Marvel, not the Captain Marvel for Marvel Comics, but Captain Marvel. It's a Shazam on the DC comic side of things. So anyway, that's quite a mouthful, but there is Fire, a Brazilian supermodel turned super heroine whose ability is, yeah, to control fire. Um, there is quite a bit of problem with this action figure, and we are going to quickly run through them. But first and foremost, a lot of collectors have reflected on that. First and foremost, she does not look like a Brazilian. She does not. She's not built like one. Now I'm sure that's a very stereotypical statement to make. Maybe there are some Brazilian out there that built like her, but uh, personally speaking, every Brazilian lady I've ever met in my life are tall and very, very, very curvaceous, and very, uh, shall we say, large framed. Not like large framed as in like fat, but they are very proportional. They are larger ladies. Mm, they tend to have really long limbs and they tend to be really tall and you tend to be quite wide in the hips. Um, yeah, we'll discuss how I know that about Brazilian women another day, not the topic for today. But anyway, um, from my own experience and from what I have heard from other collectors, uh, that is one common complaint people have about Fire is that she is just built like a regular kind of Caucasian lady, kind of skinny and kind of small, and definitely not what you are thinking, what people think when they think of Brazilian females. On top of that, Mattel, long known as the one company that can't ever do anything right, neglected to give her her jacket. This outfit, this kind of make her look kind of like a rock star with this studded belt and uh, unbuttoned bustier and high boots and long gloves. Uh, this outfit should come with a short jacket, and that's how she was drawn in the comic book, and she didn't come with that, and so that is another problem with this action figure. A third problem with this action figure is they made Fire in her power down mode. Now, there's some people that's going to say that's a good thing because you don't want her to be like flame on in a fire mode all the time. But here is a very lesser known uh, female action figure, a very lesser known female character that probably will never get made again because no one know who she is. And if you have her on the shelf in a toy store, most people that don't know her is going to walk by. Who is that? That's just another generic looking uh, female. She doesn't look exciting or interesting. So let's ditch the word exciting because she was a supermodel. So she's definitely exciting in that way, but she doesn't look unique. So if they were to make her in her powered up state where she had fire all over her body, then I think they would be able to sell a lot more of this action figure. Now, she does have one flaming part, which is this little piece on her left hand, this green trail of fire, that can be snapped over her left hand to give her a flaming fist. So that's kind of cool. She can do like a flaming uppercut to her enemy. Uh, that's okay, I guess. Articulation kind of is not that good on this action figure either, but that's no surprise when it comes to action figure made by Mattel. I'm not going to show all of it because these figures tend to break really easily, so I'm kind of a little bit nervous, but I'm going to show you guys a couple of the problems with her articulation. This hair, her super big, super thick, super long hair restrict her head from doing hardly anything. Like you can maybe move her head this tiny little bit left and right, but that's about it. There's not much you can do with her head because of how big her hair is, and this hair just make her face look super small. Um, Her legs have really loose articulation. Like the knee joint here is really wobbly. On top of that, with her super pointy stiletto heel, make her one of the really frustrating action figure to stand. There's almost no way to keep her standing without leaning her on something. Despite all that, she could have been a good character to add to your DC Comics collection. But there is one final problem. As far as I know, Mattel made Fire, but they never made her partner Ice. As far as I know, maybe if they did, someone can let me know. And because I would dearly love to acquire Ice just to go with Fire. Fire and Ice is like Marvel Comics Cloak and Dagger. They have to go together, or DC Comics Hawk and Dove, they have to go together. Like you now, I'm stuck with the fire. I don't have ice, and that is just kind of a bummer when you come to the completion of things. So overall, she is rather a disappointing action figure, not because she's poorly made, although she's not great either. Not because she's ugly or anything, but just a whole bunch of missed opportunities and bad decisions on Mattel's part make her a very subpar action figure. And these DC action figures are not cheap either. Like I remember I got her on sale for 12 bucks, but if you want to get her brand new and not on sale, she would be like $25, which is really way too much to pay for a boring looking plain uh, female action figure with nothing but a tiny green flame effect on her left hand. Let's bring her out of the frame and we'll bring in the next hot Brazilian. Also going by the name of Doc Costa, now we have Roberto da Costa, also Brazilian, of course, from Marvel Comic. Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, was a child prodigy, um, and He was a son of an archaeologist and a very rich businessman. And even when he was a very young, he was already featured on the teenage girls magazine. So he was like a child model. I didn't even know there's such a thing. And then he was also an international level soccer player for Brazil. One day, when Roberto was 14 years old, he was bullied by a couple of racist bullies at school. One of them started beating him up really badly, and that's when Roberto's superhuman ability, his mutant ability, surfaced. Suddenly, his skin turned black, and when I say he turned black, I don't mean he turned into a brother. I mean he turned like black, like the black of night, pitch black, solid black. Everything around him, his skin, his clothes, his environment turned black. He basically like turned into the shadow, if you would get my meaning. And he displayed this superpower, super strength that allowed him to throw the bully away from him effortlessly. After that, he was so scared that he went home and tried to figure out what was wrong with him, and that's when he ran. Eventually, that he ran into Professor Xavier of the X-Men uh, School for Gifted Mutants or Young People, whatever that school was called. Professor Xavier took Sunspot under his wing, and Sunspot became a member of the New Mutant, which was a younger generation from the X-Men. It's all very complicated, but just know that he's a mutant. He was a teenage sport athlete and superstar and supermodel, and then he displayed this new ability uh, to turn black. That just sounds so weird to turn black. Um, and then he got to join the next generation of X-Men. Eventually, he ended up on the X-Force um, with Cable and all those Deadpool and Strong Guy and all those other X-Force characters. Um, so what exactly is his superpower? What exactly is this mutant ability? This turning black? What's the deal with that? Well, it's actually a lot more interesting than Roberto just turning black. What Roberto has is the ability to convert sunlight, store sunlight, and use it for superpower. So see, his power kind of like powered by sunlight, like Superman is. Like you and I, the regular people, we eat food. Our body convert that food into a storable energy, and then when we want to use energy, it converts that back into energy we can use. Well, Roberto's body uses sunlight the same way. And when he activates his superpower, why he turns black, is because his body will absorb every single bit of light around him to use that for as an energy source. So he literally suck in light like a black hole, and then that light give him energy, allow him to fly, allow him to display massive superhuman strength. At his peak, he's able to lift about 50 tons. One time, he even punched the Incredible Hulk and was able to stagger Incredible Hulk. Um, his ability also allow him to absorb energies directed at him, like laser guns and laser weapons cannot usually harm him because he can convert that energy to uh, be used by his own body. And he has superhuman speed, superhuman reflexes, and all that cool stuff. Uh, so yeah, he's basically a superhero powered by sunlight. He can also use that energy he stored up in his body to fire fireballs and project energy attacks at people. He can also flare up and with beams of very strong light to so people can't see him clearly. His touch is also able to change people's body temperature. So sometimes because his body will suck in all the light around him, he's able to drop the temperature around him to really cold by doing that. So that sounds really interesting superpower. And on top of that, he is also a pretty decent hand-to-hand fighter. He was trained by guys like Wolverine, and also he is very familiar with Brazil's own fighting art called Capoeira. We'll talk about Capoeira a little bit later. So that is Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot. And this action figure is pretty neat looking. His uniform is largely blue and red. There's a big blue and red V in front of his uniform, and on the side of his leg, there's some yellow coloration, yellow stripes. The color of his uniform also is yellow, and he has yellow wristband with a yellow energy effect that look like he's throwing this energy outward. And it's just a really striking action figure. He is, I would say he's kind of slender. He's more on the slender side, but that is correct because in the comic book, Roberto is like 5'8", and I think he's like 170 pounds. So he's not a twig, but he's not a big guy. He's kind of short and compact, which this figure actually portrays quite well. Also, to denote his power, to show his power, any exposed part of the this action figure is exposed skin is solid black, and then around his shoulder there's this yellow bubbly corona like aura coming out of his body, like this yellow sunlight energy just leaking from his body, like he's really powered up. That's really cool. That's really cool because there's almost no way. This was made by Hasbro, by the way. Hasbro, and this, just quickly mentioning that this action figure was one of the birthday gift from my girlfriend to me in 2020. So we are still digging our way through the birthday pile, even this long after my birthday. Um, in his original comic book form, yeah, there's almost no way for any toy company to be able to portray that because when he powers up in the comic book, he's basically this black human shaped form, like solid black, vaguely man shaped form with a yellow aura, yellow corona around him. So you wouldn't be able to really do that in toys because it's just it's not going to look proper, not going to look adequate. So Hasbro managed to find a kind of a in between, a middle of the road way to do this. Make him solid black and give him uh, some coloration on his uniform, and then allow him to have these yellow, if yellow energy kind of leaking from him in little bits and pieces. So he looked like he's just about to power down, or he's just about to power up. Uh, so that does convey his superpower really well. I say really good job for these guys. Um, like most of the Hasbro superhero figures from Marvel, he's extremely articulated, but that's no surprise now. The head can nod back and forth, shake left and right, arm move, shoulder move in, out, forward and back, uh, elbow, double jointed elbow, wrist can flex and turn, torso can crunch like that. Torso can turn, legs can kick forward and back, rotate side to side. Knee, I believe the knees are double jointed. Yes, they are. And ankles can rotate side to side and forward and back. Extremely articulated, really well done. This is a very well done uh, action figure, very well done character, very well executed. And Sunspot is a pretty interesting character, even though a lot of people never heard of him. Now, when we talk about Brazilian earlier, I mentioned the game Tekken, and those of you who know your Tekken video game probably already know this is coming up because uh, Tekken was the one fighting game that brought a realistic Brazilian fighter, maybe the first video game that brought a realistic Brazilian fighter into the spotlight. And that character is none other than Eddie Gordo, right here. Who is Eddie Gordo? Born in Brazil, yes, you guessed it. Eddie Gordo was the heir to a multi-million dollar corporation. He was the son of a multi-millionaire. But his life took a turn for the worse one day without knowing why. He was coming home from school when he was 17. I think he was 17. He was coming home from school and he found his dad dying in his office. And his dad had been shot and was almost dead. And Eddie had no idea who shot his dad and why. His dad's last breath to Eddie was, "Tell the police you did it, and so they can put you in jail. Only there will you be safe." So Eddie falsely admitted to murdering his father and was sentenced to go to jail. And while he was in jail, he was secretly researching, trying to look for any clue on who murdered his father and why. And also, another thing that happened to him in jail was he met an old master of this superb martial art called Capoeira. Now, for those of you who don't know what capoeira is like the national martial art of Brazil. A lot of people know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but not many people know about capoeira. Capoeira is a very fancy, very flashy looking martial art with a lot of break dancing moves that they roll around, spin around on the floor, doing backflips, and their legs keep going in all directions, and it's really quite energetic. It's very challenging martial art to learn. Uh, Personally, I've actually never studied capoeira, although I have been accused of using capoeira movement when I spar or fight in the past, just because some of my techniques look like they might have come from capoeira, but no, I've never practiced that martial art before. Can you imagine how difficult that would be for a blind person? Like, it's bad enough you don't know where you're going, and now you're spinning all over the place and back flipping, rolling to the side, and you're lashing out with your leg, and you don't even know if you're going to kick your opponent or if you're going to kick the wall. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't sound like a very logical kind of martial art for a blind person to attempt. Uh, would I like to learn it? Oh yeah, sure. I would definitely like to learn it, but I don't know if it would be very practical. Uh, but anyway, back to Eddie. Finally, after about 10 years, Eddie got out of jail somehow. I don't know how, because you would think if he admitted to murdering his father, they would keep him in jail for life or have him executed. But I don't know what happened there. But he got out of jail, and then he decided to enter the King of Iron Fist tournament to uh, try to find the clue to who murdered his dad because apparently he figured out that the people who murdered his dad had something to do with the people who run the Iron Fist tournament. So he decided to enter and investigate. So that's basically Eddie Gordo in a nutshell. This multi-millionaire son, once upon a time just a normal everyday student, and then came home and found his dad murdered and had to falsely admit to killing his dad so he could go to jail and hide from their enemy there, and so on and so on, and he became the master of Capoeira. And the first that I believe that was the first time ever Capoeira was showcased in a video game is such a positive light because Eddie Gordo is an interesting character. I personally hated using him because it's really difficult to maneuver. He, he's one of those characters that you push the wrong button and he's laying down on the floor for no good reason at all, just really frustrating. Um, so I didn't like him, but I did appreciate people who could control him very well because he was interesting character. He wasn't like karate or taekwondo or judo or all those generic stuff. He was something new, something very different. His moves looked like he was dancing, was very graceful, and on top of that, he was actually very powerful. People who know how to control Eddie Gordo in the game, they can do a lot of damage in a short time. This Eddie Gordo action figure was made in year 2000, and that's when I acquired him. So he's quite old. Um, he's over 20 years old. And as you guys can see, this, well, at least I hope you guys, I hope you guys can see, uh, this is a really well-made action figure. It was made by Epoch. We've mentioned Epoch toys before in a previous episode when we talked about the other two Tekken action figure, Anna and Nina. Eddie Gordo here came from the same company, Epic, and this is how he was portrayed in the Tekken Tag Tournament video game. What's really interesting about this action figure is, unlike a lot of figures we see today, his arms they don't bend forward and back. Instead, the angle of his arms changes as you rotate his arm out. So if you rotate his arm out, his arm goes straight. You rotate his arm the other way, he does a bicep curl. So everything is rotational on this action figure, which is quite an interesting concept. It's not perfect because in some poses he looks really weird, but yeah, it's an interesting concept that uh, allows his physique to really show without a lot of joint cuts. And talk about physique, this is a really good looking character, really good looking action figure. Uh, First, let's look at his hair. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of biased when it comes to that hair because his hairstyle looks exactly like my hairstyle when I was beginning to grow my hair in the beginning of 2020. When I would have my hair tied back, my hair looked exactly like that. So, so yeah, I'm a little bit biased. I love that hair. He has a really good looking hairstyle. And then you look at his sculptural details. He is muscular, but not overtly so. He is muscular, but he is within the realm of possibility. He looks like he's a guy who's very good at his martial art, who's very active, but he's not all steroid up like a lot of superhero action figures. So he has the kind of build that you look at this guy, you think, yeah, you know, if I work hard enough, I might be able to get a physique like that. Look at that. You can see, definitely tell the bicep, the tricep, everything's well cut, but everything it flows together so nice. Like his proportions are so nice. He's big. He's a big guy without seeming to be slow, and he's a lean guy without seeming to be weak. He has that kind of very balanced physique. He also has uh, his belt. He wears his belt with the uh, ends of the belt hanging down the side. By the way, that's how I like to wear my belt too. If you guys seen videos of me dressed up in my gi, that's how I wear my belt down the side. And he's got these poofy, wide martial art pants and bare feet. This is a guy who looks like he's ready to do some fighting. This guy who looks like he's ready to break into some cool martial art moves, and because of his interesting joint alignment, he can do a lot of really cool movements with his leg kicking out to the side, his leg can uh, bend like this, and he can bring his knees up, high knee, and then his arms. He can push out, palm strike like that. He can uh, do an uppercut like this. Now he doesn't have much going on in the torso area, so unfortunately he's not going to be doing crunches or anything. But honestly, for an action figure that came out in the 2000, in year 2000, this was great. This was a wonderfully made action figure. I'm not going to show it on screen here, but he also came with a whole lot of interchangeable hands. So he can have closed fist, open hand, fingers, jabbing, pointing. I think he came with like three different pairs or four different pairs of hands. And of course, he has this display base that he is attached to. Now, let's bring our three hot Brazilians all back together so they can do a group shot. In the middle, Eddie Gordo. On the left, Sunspot. On the right, leaning on Eddie. Because, of course, a guy like that need a supermodel. Yeah. On the right, Fire. Our three hot Brazilian action figures. Thank you for checking out today's Toys Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night. And yeah, if you've been to Brazil, let me know of your experience in the comment section.